Oh yeah, oh yeah, man. Listen, it's Tuesday, y'all. It's Tuesday. It is, man. It is the Upper Vision Room in full effect. And as you saw, we're gonna be dropping diamonds every Tuesday night. We be dropping diamonds, and who be dropping diamonds? It's my guest. This is your host, Chaplain John McClung Jr. But tonight I'm just John McClung Jr. because in the Upper Vision Room, this is where all the magic happens. And so I created the Upper Vision Room so I can have some relationships come in, so we can have an unscripted conversation. We can cover some amazing topics, in their expertise, or whatever their field may be, or just general conversations that we believe that our audience should hear, that you don't normally get a chance to hear from individuals. And tonight, man, we got one that you might have seen before, but we got another brother along with him. So we got the dynamic trio tonight, and we're gonna make it happen. So this is the conversations for this month. This is October, and as you can see, I'm adorned in purple, got the purple background. We're going to cover a topic that is very well known, uh, doesn't often come from this side of the fence as far as consistently having a conversation amongst men. And so what I wanted to do, and I didn't do my flyer, but I want to do a series. It's going to be a 4-part series, which is all the Tuesdays in this month, and it's going to be called MADD, and it's going to be MAADD. And what is that? Men advocating against domestic disturbance. I'm an acrostic teacher, so I'm always going to have an acronym. So we're going to be mad. We're going to be advocates against domestic disturbance this month. And I got 4 or 5 amazing brothers that's going to be, chopping it up unscripted this month to talk about different variations. As domestic violence happens every 9 seconds, like over 400 times in a minute. I mean, well, maybe I should say in an hour. And so, from this perspective, we hear on many occasions, women talk about it. But for me, I need to have my brothers together as we talk about it, and really, give different versions and variations, because not only does it happen to women, it happens to men, and those are conversations men don't often have. And so, I'm real on the Upper Vision Room, and the brothers that I bring in, they are real too. So they're gonna enjoy and have this conversation unscripted again. So again, this is the Upper Vision Room every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for my people on the West Coast. And I am not, man. When I had them in the green room, they was like, "Man, hurry up!" I'm holding the reins, because they was ready to jump in like thoroughbreds, big stallions. So tonight I got 2 brothers that I'm gonna bring in, and I'm going to let them, one, reintroduce themselves, and then one introduce himself. And these are brothers that I hung out with in Africa. We were on a trip together, and so we created a very cool bond. And I am excited to have both of them in the Upper Vision Room tonight. And we're gonna be open-minded about this conversation. I'm gonna throw some shots at them, and they're gonna throw some. And as you saw the diamonds drop, we're gonna be dropping some diamonds. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring in my first brother. Let's see here if I can get him in. Let's see here. Yeah, returning. My main man, Billy Graham Jr. What's up, brother?
What's going on, brother? How you doing tonight?
Man, I'm as amazing as always. Wouldn't have it any other way, man. And I'm excited to have you back. We talked about it, And some of the information that you shared with me, man, was right in line. So it was cool to actually have you be part of the kickoff for this month, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you, and I'm glad to be here, man.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so I got my main man Billy Graham Jr. 2.0 on in the room. So I got to bring my second guest on, and oh yeah, I see him here. And listen, I'm gonna let you do the introduction because you much smoother. You got that poet version of yourself. So I'm gonna let you do that. So this I will say this. I'm gonna try to be a 10-second hype man. So this brother right here is he hails from Texas. Is that right?
Houston, Texas. Let's go and get it right. You know,
Hails from Texas. And he's the brother that is an international speaker, well-renowned and award-winning. And he is here in the upper vision room. I want to welcome, and you take it from there.
man, let me just go on into you. Already did it well by yourself. I don't really need to add anything else to it. Other than I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and an author. You add that in there. I'll introduce myself. Some call me Ev, some call me Ebony, some call me EB. But all together, you put it in. EB Scott Inspires is who I am. Like I tell you, I didn't come here to preach. I didn't come here to brag. But what I did come to do was to teach. And the only way I can do that is so my family can eat. So let's eat, fam. Let's get to talking and let's eat. That's what it's about. Let's eat.
Did he just sneak in a poet, one of them?
I was about to turn some music on and start dancing with it.
Unscripted note on us, man. That was smooth, man. That was a good way to sneak in there. I like that. All right, so y'all know. First of all, let me say thank you both for helping me kick off this month of domestic violence, and of course, as I always say, I don't want to ignore cancer, but the topic matter I'm familiar with as far as domestic violence and been involved with it from a standpoint of helping people and talking to them about it. And so I wanted to have a month of my brothers talking about it. And so what better way than to kick off with two brothers I know that have had this conversation in ways. And I always like to have a variety or diverse opportunity where people don't really, they may not know who you are, but then now they're getting ready to find out that this is another extension of my relationships. And so we just, y'all good with me jumping right on in?
Go for it.
Oh man, awesome. So as I said, as I talked about in the green room, this month for me is called MADD, MAADD, Men Advocating Against Domestic Disturbance, better known as domestic violence. And so I'm gonna start with you, Billy, because you and I had a very interesting conversation about some of the things that are recognized or some of the things that you may have trained in to show or to see, what kind of like the images of domestic violence or something that may trigger it. I think that's might be what we might have been speaking about. And so, in your training, talk about what your how you were training in this particular area, or the classes that brought you into having to discuss it, in an environment that especially with you being in the military.
So during my time in the military, I've had the unfortunate opportunity to see domestic violence on both sides, both men and women, because even though the world, we know that it's predominantly women that come forward and they're most likely the victims of domestic violence, there also are men that have the same thing. One of the biggest things that we always realized is many people do not understand actually what domestic violence is. Most people think, oh, because somebody hit you or they beat you. They don't understand that domestic violence can also be like threats, could be coercion, somebody being felt like they're in isolation. Like it's different forms of domestic violence. And many people don't know the signs or even know what to look for when they are encountering somebody with domestic violence. So the biggest thing is not just awareness about what domestic violence is, but what the signs are to look for when you see somebody going through a situation that is domestic violence.
That's a great that's definitely a great intro, man. Because one of the things that I there's two things that I talk about and you touched on them in a different way. One is for women, I call it cis, suffering in silence. But the one thing is both men and women suffer in silence. And then
Yes,
there's always red flags. And we, in those relationships, we ignore red flags, which are those signs. And so it is important to have something in place that allows you to see those red flags.
exactly.
Brother Ebony, as EB, you talked about um, a couple of different sides, as we begin to come in and have touch on this conversation in the green room, and you even as you spoke of, and you could talk about it, the version for which you clearly understand, you can actually speak to it, especially from a man's point of view of some of the things that has happened that don't often get talked about. So can you kind of like give the intro, as we dive in, man, to that side of the fence?
So, I mean, when you talk about that side of the fence, or even, I mean, look at it from both aspects. What you don't see when it comes to a man being abused, a man usually is able to cover it up, right? We're able to cover up whatever may have happened. Say that you didn't got scratched and you got cuts on your neck. Well, guess what you can blame it on? Man, I cut myself while I was shaving,
Right, right.
or if it's on your arms, well, I can wear a long sleeve shirt so nobody can see what has happened,
Yeah.
and you're able to smile and keep on going, but you never talk about it because you never want to look soft or, man, what's wrong with you? You gonna let, a woman put her hands on you? And but the thing is to that is, how were you raised? Were you raised not to put your hands on a woman? We don't even think about those sides of things. Have we been taught, walk away from the situation? So it's different, many different aspects to it. And then there's the other side to it, because all it takes is for a woman to pick up the phone and call and say that you didn't put your hands on her,
Right.
and you're going to jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period. It doesn't matter. Are they going to remove you from the home because that's their safety, that's their net, and you got to be aware of those type of things. So it can go in many different directions when you're talking about domestic violence from the man's point of view, and being in those situations makes a difference. I wrote a book called Broken but Healed about a character named C.R. Bryant,
Mm.
and it tells a story of that, but it also goes back to childhood, because we never realize the trauma that we deal with starts in childhood, and we just allow the abuse to continue into adulthood,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
man or woman.
Wow, that's a great point. Because in some ways, and I think this is probably a conversation that we've had, you can be conditioned over a period of time because you've seen it for so long that it almost becomes normal. And and we know that in a household, when you see a man, especially as a child, when you see a man going, abusing the mother, and she's there for a long period of time, consistently taking it, then eventually, as you get older, you're like, man, wait, maybe that's the way that love is supposed to be shown. So, so Billy, man, your subject matter in this, uh, especially for the wide variety of people you've seen go through it. What is the effect that you recognize, as individuals begin to slowly come out of it, or while they're in it, that affects their overall ability to function, man? Because in the military, you got to do some things, and even out, of course, outside of it. But what did you recognize?
So it's two sides of it, because you both spoke on the conditioning of like how you're raised, how you're brought up. So sometimes, and not that it's right, many individuals don't even realize that what they're doing is wrong. It's no different than when we were growing up, we received spankings versus a child that didn't receive spankings.
Right.
So as you become an adult and you have kids, and that individual looks and like, oh my God, you're spanking your kid.
Right.
It's no different than somebody that's in the domestic violence.
Mm.
The individual that might be the perpetrator might not know that they're doing something different because of what they're conditioned to believe. But that conditioning also flips to the other side. You're raised in a household that what happens in this house stays in this house.
Man, good point.
So once you get older, if you happen to become that victim of domestic violence, you have been conditioned not to say anything, because you were always conditioned. So it goes both ways,
Wow.
and you have to know how to get that information across to people on both sides, like this is wrong or you need to speak up. But the problem that most of us have is not that we don't understand and we don't see how you can let this happen, but we don't apply empathy. Instead, we apply what I call silver lining sympathy. You'll be like, somebody will come along and be like, oh, I was part of domestic violence. Somebody beat me. And they'll, instead of empathizing with that person, they'll turn around and be like, well, at least you came out alive.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's that silver lining sympathy.
Man,
that's the same thing with when you look at it the other way, the accuser or the person that's been the aggressor. They come out and be like, oh, you committed domestic violence. Well, at least you didn't kill them or anything like that. That silver lining sympathy, that's why we can't get the change that we need, because people don't know how to empathize and just be like, hey, I'm glad that you told me. Thank you for sharing that with me. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know, whether it be, let's go get counseling so you can not do that kind of aggressive act again. Or can we get counseling so you can go open up with somebody else that you might feel comfortable with as well, like a chaplain or a priest or somebody of that nature, but more of the empathy, not the silver lining sympathy, and understanding the different constraints of it from both sides of it, because that's the only way we're going to get things to stop and stop domestic violence.
Man, that is a heck of an hashtag, man. Silver lining sympathy, SLS. And you know what? In the way that the way that you just explained that is something that I recognize as well, and I'm pretty sure EB does, is if you don't know what to say in a domestic in a domestic situation to someone, you don't say anything. Because if you don't have the schooling, the training, or some type of coaching or development, and never been a mentor in that, or even been in it for that fact, and somebody comes to you and you don't have an answer, you better be a good listener and don't give an answer, because a lot of individuals have gotten information from people based on emotion that did not give them and put them in the right direction within the situation that they're in. So EB, you spoke about the of course the opposite side of this, and something I was going to laugh about when you talked about, it wasn't funny, but from a visual and thinking aspect, when you talked about the scratches, for guys, they get scratches on the arm, you might, if it's on your back, what you're going to say, man.
Yeah,
I'm lover, you know what I'm saying? So so I like the fact that you can bring that point out, because we can hide it in a much more different way than a woman does, because one, it's difficult. And I'm gonna let you speak to this. It's more difficult when we physically place the hurt on them than us being protected in some way physically of allowing a more heavy hurt on us, unless it's with tools or something that is picked up, or whatever that might be, that may show a little differently. And so it's almost unfair in some ways, because you have to convince, and again, I'm gonna let you talk to this, you have to convince individuals that it didn't happen to you. Talk about that.
You hit up on the side of the physical side. We got to also remember there's a mental side, but I will touch up on the physical side first, because when you think about the physical side of it, it ain't hard to convince somebody that you cut yourself shaving.
Right.
Let's get realistic about it, because they knew me and shave. And it's gonna heal up quickly because it's in the area where you do shave at.
Right.
The other part is, like you said about the scratches on the back, we can joke and say, man, you know how it was, man. I had to, handle my business,
Right.
But in reality, on the inside, you eating up because you're disappointed that this even happened to you in these moments. It becomes more mental after a while, because you've been taught you're not supposed to put your hands on a woman. For most men, don't put your hands on a woman. The other side to that, what happens in your house stays in your house.
Right.
That he said that.
Yeah.
The other side to it that we miss a lot of the times, and which you kind of alluded to at the beginning is, or Billy alluded to, is that we got to really look at the overall situation, because it's not just physical that we look at. It can be the words that you speak to someone, and to manipulate someone's mind while you're in the midst of that is more dangerous than the physical side of things. Because once you've manipulated the mind and you've gotten that person's mind, physical doesn't mean anything, because now you got the mind. So the physical is going to automatically be hidden. See, we always focusing on the physical, but we never look at the mental or the spiritual. Because once you get, or the emotional abuse, because once the domestic violence starts in that area, you're literally leading that person down a road that they cannot return from at times.
Wow.
And so we have to be careful in how we as men, and when I say we, I'm talking about us as men, one, how we talk to our women, and two, how we allow people to talk to us and accept things that are being said to us, and how do we come back with that. So we have to make sure that as we move forward, that we talk about all aspects and not just the physical of us being able to hide those things as men, because like you said, the majority is produced or put out there is for women. And so we got to find a way to also protect our women. We don't ever talk about how can we go about protecting our women.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean we go and get in the middle of the domestic violence or the domestic dispute, because then you're putting your own life in jeopardy plus their life in jeopardy if you go hop in the middle of what is going on. However, there are other methods that you go through. And unless you've been through one of those counseling sessions on the other side, where when I say the other side, I'm talking about where you've been accused of it and you have to go sit through that counseling session, you got to pay the money to sit through that.
Yeah.
You're not going to truly understand what is going on in those situations. So there's levels to this that we can't even touch on. We don't have enough time to truly touch on just today.
Hey, listen, the one thing I know for sure that and we all three of us know that domestic violence is 365 days. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a conversation, especially men, we need to have this. And one of the things that I learned at an early age watching my father, teach and train in this, and you and EB, you touched on it, Billy, as well. But the heart, well, I should say the heart, mind, body, soul, and spirit, but it's the emotional, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the psychological. Those same 5 areas that are attacked. And whatever masters the mind masters the man or woman, should I say. And so your statement is so powerful because the majority of domestic disturbance, as we call domestic violence, is mastered in the mind. Because if I can't have you, no one else can. You know what I'm saying? And we as men, we have this intimidating language, that we can use that can change the whole scope of the emotional connection that a woman has to us or how they see us. All of us have heard those things. And we said earlier before we came on that when it's in a conversation about a man, it's not even powerful enough to be barbershop talk.
Exactly.
It's dang show salon talk. Because the sisters are being there talking about what happened or this brother here, of course they probably calling them something else, but I'm dealing with this, and the girls is like, oh girl, so they going through those things, but the brothers, we ain't having that barbershop talk. So Billy, you man, this is good, y'all. We see and have seen, because we're all over 30, and all that other stuff. So we've seen some stuff. We've seen young people, and I had this conversation that even the executive female at whatever level, 6 or 7 figures, she will be attached to somebody in some case who has talked into her life, and then she's held at bay the same way as a teenage girl is with some young guy who has never understood or learned how to treat a female because he was never trained. And I like what you said. We have not caught it early enough in some ways. So, Billy, what did you see, from some of the situations that you were privy to, or is from a conversation that were trigger points, especially for the men, because we men, and we gonna hit it from that side that we missing, because we're missing some things that are not caught early enough, and then it shows in the ugly fruit down the road.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that we're necessarily missing them. It's the world we live in today.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the 7-figure wife or girlfriend, that their mind and everything, but the world we live in today, they have us doing this thing called generational wealth.
Wow.
But nowhere along in the world do we hear generational health. So we're not focusing on that mental because we're focusing on the financial.
Hold up a second. In the upper vision room, man, we have rewinds. when we have bell moments. I got to get my bell. Say that again, bro, because
So society has us where we're working on chasing generational wealth, but they don't put any emphasis on generational health, which is why our minds are the way they are. And it doesn't just start when I say society, this is your social life. This is your work life. And as we see today, it's getting to the kids all the way down to your online life. Because let's be honest, we're online right now. It's an online life. With COVID, we all went online.
That's right.
And so everything is pushed, but nothing about that is pushed to the mental aspect of it. And so when you talk about the different ways of why we can't get ahead of it or why we can't stop it. So one of the things that we were taught in the military and that I used to teach was about those 3 Ds. The be direct, distract, or delegate. And you mentioned about people talking that don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
We need to start teaching people that's part of the 3 Ds. You need to go delegate, find somebody else that can have this conversation with these individuals, no matter which side it is, so that we can get this change to stop. Because I'm all about, so in the past, we just used to sit by, they call it innocent bystanders.
Right.
We really have innocent bystanders in the social world we live today. You see it all the time. It can be a domestic dispute. It can be a straight up just assault dispute, fighting. And what's the first thing people do?
Man, they put it on film, bro.
Yeah.
And so our mind is triggered to that's how we have to live. So we're not doing anything to even stop it. So when we talk about regular like conversation and people talking about what should we do about domestic violence, we get the reactive thing. Like, hey, when we see it, we react. Well, the way we were taught and the way I believe and the way I give it off to people that I teach, I'm not reactive. We're proactive.
Absolutely.
I don't care who you are. I don't care where you meet me. Once you have a conversation with me and get to know me, there's one thing you're going to know when it comes to domestic violence. I can never do anything around this guy. I can't even let the person I'm abusing go around this guy.
Yeah.
I might need to stay away from them because they're going to find out who I am because I'm proactive. You can't even have it around me. And I'm not an innocent bystander. When I see something, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And if I can't do something, because I'm very direct, if I see something, I'm going to go be direct with it. If I can't, people talk about the police or whatever, but I'm a delegate. I got to call somebody to get some help or something. Or depending on the situation, many people forget about that third thing that we can use to help stop domestic violence. And that's distract. I'll give you an example. You ever been somewhere and we see it online all the time, things getting out of hand in like a restaurant. And it's like, whoa, that's getting like borderline. It takes nothing to walk up and be like, hey, sir, is that your money on the floor? I don't care what you're going through in life, how mad you are at that person. They're going to stop what they're doing. And where's the money?
Yeah.
That's a distraction.
That's cool. I like
or, hey, ma'am, I see somebody's over there calling you. Or go. You can do both, delegate and distract. Go tell the bartender, and the bartender can call. It's a multiple ways to do this, but we can't get ahead of this because we're looking at the social, the work, and the online presence that is teaching us what they're teaching us: generational wealth, not generational health. So it takes people like us to get out in the community to change that mindset so that both sides of domestic violence can see the wrong or the right of how to communicate or not be a part of that situation and not be the person that commits the domestic violence as well. Man. So it's both ways. Just got to get the generational health right.
Listen,
if you really look at what you just said about the generational health and wealth, but if you're really looking at wealth and if you actually think about it all together, all we see is the financial side of things, but it's really a working on a mindset when you're working on that generational wealth. And if you're working on the mindset, then you should be working on the health as the same thing, because that's the one thing I do teach my children is let's pick up a book and read, because there's nothing you can do with if I leave you generational wealth if your mindset isn't right, because what's going to happen? You're going to blow through it. You know, there's plenty of examples, even if you want to go back to, I know this is the upper vision room, you know, you go back to the Bible. I mean, look at Samson, look at David and what happened to his generations after him. I'm not talking about Samson. Samson was the wisest man to ever live.
Solomon.
We have access. Solomon. I'm sorry, you're right, Solomon. My mind is going and my mind is turning.
I got you, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, when we think about these things, let's move forward also in life, that when we're teaching our children, There's a new challenge out there on TikTok. Go slap a teacher and record it. Yes, when you're looking at these things and you're seeing these things, you're missing out on what's truly happening in life because you're allowing your children to do these things. And then what are the repercussions of this? You're allowing this to manifest and go forward in life because they're going to carry this with them. What are you teaching them when you're at home? What is the example that you're setting? It's us as men. What example are we setting when we're at home? Are we showing our children how to love their mother?
Right. Yeah.
You know, because if we're teaching them that, that's a part of generational health that he's talking about, which is also the generational wealth. You know, it all comes together and ties together. So it could be generational richness that they're teaching, right? But when you think about wealth, it has to include health because you don't, without the health, what are you going to have? So you're absolutely right. Without this generational health that you're talking about, it does no good. So I'm with you. That's what I'm telling you. I'm in agreement with you. But we got to do it, right? And it's about us starting to teach at home. Once we start teaching at home, the rest can start to fall in line. But what are we teaching at home? It starts at home, and then it goes out from there.
So I want to piggyback on that right quick. So I agree. It's what you teach at home. But remember, that's what I meant by that proactive piece. That's what you teach at home. But when you carry yourself like that on a regular basis, it's going to start affecting those outside of your home. Like if you start doing that, you know what they say about a circle. Like if everybody in a circle thinks like you, I might need to find a new circle. Well, in this instance, if my circle doesn't think like me when it comes to domestic violence, for one, I might need to find a new circle. But over time, you're going to realize you need to change to even hang around me. You need to change to be in my presence because I'm not accepting it. But it starts a chain effect outside the house because it does no good. If I teach my kids, we've seen it all the time. Hey, because I got 3 boys. Boys, we don't hit women. We don't do this. It does no good if I'm teaching them that and then go out in life and they go be successful and then they get married and then the mom and dad of the woman that they married didn't do those same lessons. Right. So now my son is the one getting beat. So you got to be proactive. So in order to be proactive, not just in my house, I need to be proactive with every time I go somewhere, every time I talk to somebody. That's how you start making that big change because it's possible once you like. Let me hit you with one right quick because you said TikTok. Have you ever heard? Because I agree with that. I heard about that challenge and I saw a teacher like start putting on the black Air Force Ones like he with it. But anyway, have y'all ever heard of an app that was in the past? It was called Yik Yak.
No.
My point exactly. So Yik Yak was an app that like people can put their information in and be like, oh, I'm at the bar, I'm at the restaurant, I'm at this area, and it's showed a little vicinity of like a 5-10 mile radius. And it'll be like, show your picture, I'm here, come hang out with me. And people would go use that app to go meet other individuals. But the problem with that is that app started making a rise in stalking. Made a rise in sexual assault. And so what happened is about 76% of the people, because Yik Yak was a $400 million app, about when they started getting those numbers coming back, about 76% of the people started deleting that app.
Yeah.
And when that many people delete an app, that means they don't have the money to sustain that app. So guess what? That app had to go away with, and that stopped a lot of stalking, domestic violence, sexual assault, because they did away with that app. So if TikTok can't, because I get it, it's all fun and games. I got a TikTok. I want to be able to reach the kids and the younger generation. So I got a TikTok. But if TikTok took over to the point where it was promoting that kind of stuff on a regular basis, it's like anything else. Once you start removing that stuff from their life, guess what? That stuff starts to change and go under. So it's possible to do it outside of your house, but it takes people like us and those in the community that support us and we support them to make that kind of change happen.
That's multiple great points that you guys had. You know, one of the things that I learned years ago, was the things that happen in a home or in a family happens 4 generations deep. So when you think about individuals, especially when they're in their major adulthood and they're domestically challenged from a standpoint of disturbance or violence, it's something that they saw their father do, they saw their grandfather do, or the great great grandfather, or if they don't go as far as the great great, they're teaching their son is watching them. And so we must clearly recognize that there's going to be a moment where there has to be a generational break from a standpoint of those things being seen and done. And so I really, really liked what both of you hit on from the generational health, because it is mental health, it is spiritual health, it is emotional health, physical and psychological, and especially the mental, emotional, and the spiritual, because you got to have some type of spiritual foundation that allows you to recognize that this is not how you treat another gifted individual that was brought here to the earth, because the Lord spiritually gifted all of us to be here, otherwise we would not. So it's his gift to us. And the one thing, especially, man, I talk, man, and y'all get this, especially if you are a brother that has been blessed to be sent or given one of the most amazing, precious gifts that God has created in the female form. It is our responsibility to take care of that gift from God. And to me, that is a broken connection that is not clearly understood, that you have been given something that is covered in a lot of ways. And here you're abusing a godly gift. There's consequences that come with that. And you may not even think of it at the moment, but there's consequences that comes with not taking care of God's gift. And so, and I know both of you brothers are spiritual, but this is one thing that I want to I gotta talk about this one. Man, how do we get the young fellas? Because right now they don't have a clue. It's almost like the Israelites going into the wilderness. The older people were in the wilderness dying off, and then you got the young ones you never even heard afterwards, but they had to learn some stuff on their own, and we don't even know if they did. And that's what we see right now, is that because of the absence of what's going on in the family, you have the streets taking care of and showing things, and the TV and all of these things showing these young brothers the total opposite of what it means to truly love another individual, especially the female, and vice versa. Because some of the attitudes that our little young women have, man, they'll cut a brother up in a minute because that's what they see. So I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna tell Ebony, EB, I want you to touch
Man,
on this, bro.
yeah, because you didn't. I'm finna let you, man, because when you touched up on some major stuff. One, because um, what I've realized and what I've seen is, we first of all, we talking about the streets got them. Well, why do the streets have them? Because we're allowing the streets to have them. I
Mm,
mean, literally, I went to a football game last weekend, not last weekend, last Thursday, last week, and I was driving by, and a young man, his pants sagging and things like that.
yeah.
Young man, go and pull up your pants. I had this me talking. I let my window down to stop to talk to him and say, man, pull up your pants. You represent the school that you're going out there to. I had this conversation with a coach. I said, you got your players out there that's not playing. They got on your jersey, but their jeans are sagging. They're
Mm,
representing you and your school. What do you? And the coach said to me, well, you're part of the community, aren't you? Well, you need to say something to them. If they give you any disrespect, then you let us know, and we're going to take care of it. But they should listen to you. So the
mm,
thing is, we have to start speaking up and teaching them ourselves. That's one. Two, that, like we've already talked about, set the example in the homes. Set the example out in public of how you should treat a woman in public. Because see, what we don't realize and what we miss is, we talked about the spiritual, the physical, what we see. But do you know that some of those generational curses, you may have never even seen that parent, and you got that trait in you?
the DNA.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
And so it takes you even harder to find out, well, why am I this way? What can I do to change this? And it takes a lot of prayer and supplication and reading and studying to break some of those generational curses. But it all starts with, we're talking to, he's already said it, be proactive. Be proactive. We're looking at the overall big picture. What are we doing? We can sit here and talk about this all day, but what do we do when we get out in the community? When we see them boys with their pants sagging, when we see them disrespecting a young lady, what are we doing?
Mm,
Let boys be boys. They're gonna just be boys.
right.
No, it's time for us to step up and set that example for them, to teach them how to treat a lady. When you talk about the covering, you talked about covering earlier. It is our responsibility as men to cover our women,
Yeah. No doubt. No.
especially if you're married. It's your responsibility to cover your wife,
Yeah.
because God got us all covered. And then you got to realize, and once you cover your wife, she's still covering the rest of the family too. But if there's a single woman out there, and it's our job to cover them as well.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
I say cover them, that means that you speak up for them if you see something that's not right going on. You see someone mistreating them. It's our job to step in and say, hey, that's not how we treat her. You know, that is our responsibility to do those things. But are we doing those things? We have responsibilities as men to correct and to teach. Are we out there teaching? Most of the time, who's teaching? The women are out there teaching.
Yep.
A woman can't teach a boy how to be a man.
That's
At
true.
the end of the day, you know, I read a book called From Male to Men, and I refer to them as women versus females because that's what they are. They're women, or they're girls, or they're ladies. But there is a thing as a male versus a man. And we come into adulthood thinking that we become a man, and we haven't even transitioned from being a boy.
Right.
We're still a boy, and some of us are still boys all the way up into our 50s and 60s.
That's right.
I'm not up there yet, but I mean, I'm in my 40s, but I still got friends that
I can talk about the 50s. You're right. Yeah, man. No doubt about it.
I mean, that's keeping it real with you. That if we want to make the difference and change this and change our community, we got to stop blaming what happened in the 60s. Oh, they brought in welfare and they kicked the man out. Okay, let's get beyond that. So what can we do to change that scenario? What are we doing as men to make the difference? And it starts with us one at a time. And it starts with us talking to one young man at a time.
Yeah.
Right? To teach one young man at a time. Influence his life one at a time, because you're not going to change the world, but you can change one person. That one person can change someone else. And then it starts to circulate. And then you have a snowball effect versus a snowball effect we have in saying the streets are teaching them. Why are the streets teaching them? Because we're sitting here and we're not doing the teaching.
Absolutely. I see you on the edge of your chair, bro. Come on, Billy.
So I agree with everything that was said. There's one aspect of though that I think needs to be changed. Because I agree. I was brought up with that teaching of I call it the multiple umbrella effect. Like as the man, I'm the top umbrella. I shield my wife. My wife is the umbrella underneath me, and she shields the kids. It's the multiple umbrella effect. And now we have women that are at the top of the umbrella, and we have some, I'm not even calling them men, we call them young men to boys that want to be the second umbrella. So the problem I see with what we're trying to say is like, I had to realize this let's just start with my kids. I was teaching my kids things that I was taught for an era that no longer exists.
Oh, hold up. Rewind. That's a ding, ding, ding moment. Say that again.
I was teaching raising my kids with my wife. We were teaching our kids for an era that no longer exists.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So when we're talking about, especially along the lines of domestic violence and everything on both sides, I get it. But majority of us, and I was guilty of this until this recently, like past few years, we were teaching according to things that we were taught for situations that no longer exist.
That's a great point.
Like nowadays, especially, and don't get me wrong, I love everything about what we got going on right now. Women's equality. I got it. Back in the day, in the past, the woman was at home. She was the home care, the nurturer, took care of the kids. The man went out providing. So the umbrella kind of was like shaped already. Like the dad wasn't at home because mom was there. So obviously when I come in the house, whatever babe wants me to do, or whatever wife wants to do, she already handled it. That umbrella effect isn't like that anymore. You can go on a job right now. You already said the young lady that can make 7 figures and her husband doesn't, or her boyfriend doesn't. But that doesn't mean that man still is not the protector and the provider. People providing does not just mean financial. Oh man, providing does not just mean financial. Right. You can have a 7-figure earning woman, and she still needs you to provide stuff as a man that she can't do for herself, and vice versa. You could be a man 7 figures, but you cannot nurture yourself the way a woman gonna come in and nurture you. But you have to do it in line with what today's times say it is. Like I hear the argument all the time that, because let's be honest, one of the biggest reasons for divorce and domestic disputes is financial. There we go again, back to the money side of it. We're back to the money side of it. So that is one of the biggest reasons for divorce, and that's one of the leading contributors to why domestic disputes happen. Because what happens when you remember, it's layers to this. What happens when finances aren't right? You're broke. You don't have money. The couple dollars you have, what do? You go out, you buy a drink, you start getting drunk. Next thing you know, you're hitting somebody. That all started. It was a slope, like you said, a slippery slope. So when we're talking about how we're training and teaching our younger generation, we can't use the same things and same tools that we were taught. Remember, I told you I got a TikTok. I will never do a TikTok dance. If I'm doing a TikTok dance, it must mean my oldest kid had a grandkid, had a kid, and that kid grew up. Now I'm a granddad. That's about the only way I can really see it. I got a granddaughter and I'm TikToking, whatever the future. But anyway, I didn't get a TikTok for that reason. I got a TikTok so that I can reach down to that level. Because remember, I told you we can't teach them how we were taught. The way we were taught is do as I say, not as I do. Whatever I say, the grown-ups pulled us to where they were at. What did they call that? You moving too fast, you're acting too grown for your age.
Right.
Well, you pulled us up here.
That's right.
So now, in order to teach this generation, if you pull them up there, you're just going to keep the cycle going. So what do? In order to teach them, you have to go down and meet them where they're at.
Correct.
Yeah. Because I'm sorry, us talking right now is most likely only adults going to see this.
Right.
So this kind of message, we need to have these conversations on their platforms as well. If you don't follow me, Billy Graham Jr. 2.0 on TikTok, it's not hard.
Yeah.
You're going to see me talking about mental stuff all the time because of the simple fact it starts with your mental. And on the biggest part about your mental, because that's what I do with committed development, I'm about helping you develop personally. When you know what you are willing to accept and you know what you're not willing to accept, that's one of those mind frames of, in the future, if somebody does put your hands on you, you know that you're not accepting that because you know who you are. You know you are enough. You know what your purpose is. And you know that people always say the secret to success. You know that you are the secret to your success. And once you realize that, you want to let domestic violence situations happen. I really do. Sincerely, I empathize with all survivors. Because that is horrible. I empathize with them. I thank them for being strong and coming forward. I really do. Could you imagine if you had a talk with them and asked them what were they taught? What were they taught growing up? How was somebody strengthen their mind? Like EB, I hear you say tell your kids go read a book. Everybody didn't get these same lessons. Why? Because nobody reached down to them.
Right.
You reach down to your kids. Other parents do as well, as I know that. But that's the big picture of how we're going to change it. We have to reach down so we don't have to 10, 20, 15 years down the line have to keep wondering who are the survivors. Because let's be honest, everybody doesn't survive from this. But we have to change our mental. And in order to change the mental, we have to reach down and start reaching people where they're at and help them come up to our level.
But you said something in there, right? You said in there, we can't be those do as I say, not as I do parents. That was the first lesson I learned as I got past the age of 40, well, maybe the late 30s. I couldn't tell my kids, this is what you need to do, what you're not doing. That does not work. You're absolutely right. We have to set the example, period. And I'm just saying from experience, because when I made a decision, so one of my most recent decisions, I went to my son and said, son, this is what I'm doing. I said, I told y'all, in order to become successful, you have to take steps, you have to take risks. So this is what I'm doing in this process of life right now. My son looked at me and told me to my face, he said, Dad, but you've already been setting an example for us. You've already been showing us. But I didn't see myself showing them that because I wanted to be that parent that shows them, hey, this is what I'm doing, following my footsteps, right? I wanted to be a teacher by doing and not just by what I'm speaking out my mouth, because me speaking out my mouth and telling them one thing and then I'm doing something else doesn't line up.
Yeah, that's unequal. That's unequally yoked right there.
So no, you hit some valid points. So I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, we have to set the example. What are we doing when we out? You know. So I'm in total agreement with that.
So I got this theory. Yeah, and I got this theory. I didn't have any daughters. I only have one son, and the things that I learned, because me being in my 50s, I'm in that generation that was kind of like the tail end now of what was the 60s, as you were talking about, Billy. The things we learned then we were teaching in that next generation, which our kids are probably in their 30s and stuff like that. And so they're kind of like the tail end from a standpoint of how things were done in the home. So I had this, I had this theory that when we looked and we were talking about the young men, and my thing was, what if our daughters were taught to say no to young men who had their pants all over the place, that they would not deal with them if they didn't know how to actually pull their pants up and treat them in the way that they should be treated. Because the one thing that really sometimes get to me, I ain't, and, yeah, and we real on here, man, in the upper vision room. One thing that gets me is to have beautiful daughters, beautiful women hanging with a brother. I mean, and dressed presentable and all, and I see y'all faces because y'all know what I'm talking about. Presentable, and then you see the guy, and you go like, "Wait a second, what? Come on now, you mean to tell me that your standard has been set to a point where the individual you with doesn't represent what you look like or what you've been taught to look like or be?" And so that's just my theory because I watch, I look at this and I go like, man, if that young lady would actually look at this dude for real, for whatever his rap might be, whatever, hanging out kids might be doing, but look at him for real and go like, that's not the kind of life, person that I want the real person. That ain't the outward appearance ain't always what it is, of course, but man, it sure does give an impression when when you see it. But my thing is too, and both of you guys, I'm gonna let y'all drop some diamonds right here because as we have been touching and talking about this, and Billy, I love the fact of reaching to the point of where, of course, they are at, because that's a powerful position to meet them at, and especially if you have the language for it. A lot of older individuals don't have the language to meet them there, and
Mm-hmm.
and that goes back to your point of being taught, or the way things were spoken, and it's a difficult situation. I'm fortunate enough to where my son is 33, and so, I was meeting him when I was in my 30s and 40s, as him being young. I was reaching down to him and the kids he was going to school with, the boys. I would include them in all of the things that he and I did, because of course he was the only child, but his classmates were too. They were in a single mother home, things like that. So they were included in the things that he did, because I would always ask, hey, bring your friends, bring the fellas with you, because we need to have the round table talk, the powwow. We need to you need to have that man in the at the sitting with you guys, where you can ask questions that you're not going to ask your mom. You're not going to talk about it with you need to have that male voice, no matter whom that male, and it's got to be a male voice that ain't talking street from a standpoint of
Yep.
saying the wrong things, but they can talk street and let them know that there's some things that you need to take away from, or stay away from. But there has to be that language that has to be insightful. It's got to be wisdom. It's got to be knowledge that allows them to actually have some type of growth. And so, as you both, gracefully spoke about, this area, I'm at that point when I'm asked this question, and to both of you, because I usually ask this individually from a standpoint of the guest, and Billy, I asked this last time, but this is in the area of domestic violence for men, especially. What do you consider? And I'm gonna go with EB. EB, what do you consider the pain point that we have as men that has caused us to be in that 9 seconds, from a standpoint of physically abusing, and then also, and I got to say the other way, actually our self-esteem and self-image being affected to that we are being abused. But I want to speak from the abusive standpoint, where we are. What's that pain point, man, that is causing us to be in that number?
When Billy said earlier, at some points you may need to be quiet on, right? But the reality of it is this: the pain point comes when you feel you're not getting respect.
Mm,
As a man, respect is one of the biggest things for us, right? And if someone's trying to take away your manhood or pull that cord, then it's like, wait a minute, I'm not going to let you just disrespect me in this manner, right? That's that would be one of the pain points, right? Or if someone puts their hands on you, you've always been taught, don't let anybody put their hands on you, but yet don't hit this woman. But you told me not to let somebody just put their hands on me
Mm.
because we're raised. Don't let nobody put your hands on you. Because if you let somebody whoop you out in the streets,
Yeah.
you get home, what's gonna happen? You're gonna get another whooping because
No.
you let yourself get out there and you coming home crying about somebody that bullied you. But now you got this, and then it also comes back to the point of who raised you at home, right? Because we talk about the single mothers, but what about the children that only have mama there? They don't have mama or daddy there.
Yeah.
So you talked about daughters, right? And my daughters, I have daughters. And so my baby girl, no matter what, I'm surprised she's not with me tonight. Because if she was, you'd be seeing her hanging all over me some type of way, making sure she can't be seen on camera. But and I share that to share that how we loving our daughters,
Yeah.
right? That's what I want to touch on, how we loving them, how we showing them love. Because how we show our girls love as a man is how they're going to expect to be loved when they get older.
Great point.
You're giving your daughters flowers right now.
Oh. Ding, 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 ding. Come back. Rewind. You got to rewind that one because, and I'm gonna let you say it real quick. That's a rewind mainly because that is a powerful statement when it comes to fathers and daughters. Say that again.
It's how are you loving your daughters? Are you giving them flowers? Are you taking them out on dates? What are these things that you're doing with your daughters as a man? Because the things that we don't do, all you gotta do, the man gotta just come speak those words every now and then, give a couple of flowers, or are you opening the door for them? I can open up the door for her. Once I got it, I don't have to open up the door for her no more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, my daughter and my lady will tell you that every time my lady gets into the car, I'm there to open the door. Every time my daughters get in the car, I'm opening the door. And if they touch the door, this is my position right here. Are y'all touching my door?
That's my wife's position right there, man. She be waiting.
But I'm saying it's even to the point that I don't even. If my lady's gas tank is low and I know her gas tank is low, I want to go fill up her car. She should not have to go and fill up her car. What are we teaching? You know, but our pain, going back to your question, but our pain points go back to, for men, it's all about respect. And once we start losing respect for ourselves, self-respect is one. And then when the woman in our lives lose respect for us, that makes it even worse. Then our children lose respect. We're at a low point.
Yeah.
Right? And we can't go back up to that self-love. So that's my answer to that question. It's all about when we lose respect, especially self-respect, and then respect from our main supporter.
That's a great kickoff right there. Go ahead, Billy.
So I agree with everything EB said, but y'all know me. I gotta play devil's advocate.
Come on with it, man. Come on with it.
That pain point. We've been talking about what to teach people, how to reach communities, reach the younger generations. We've been teaching them what to look for, the signs. We taught all that throughout this talk. It can go deeper, like we said, we can go all day long. But that pain point is sometimes reversed. With that same thing of me teaching my kids, I got boys again, not to hit women.
Yeah.
I still have to address, because we see it all the time, those women that get a real loose, pushing and jumping in your face, talking real reckless.
Absolutely.
Because we're human. I'm sorry. Everybody hasn't grown into who they are. Like, not yet. The brain doesn't stop growing to 25, and then it's time to start learning even more. So when you see these younger generation and they're popping off, they're not even fully mentally developed. And that pain point sometimes is not that the person is abusive. Sometimes people are put in abusive situations that makes a reaction happen. And you know, it's like a sport. Somebody commits a penalty, but you didn't see the first penalty that made me the cause and react. It's cause and effect. Now I'm not just saying that for women. I'm going to flip that around, because I hear all the time, especially in our community, these women, black women, these women crazy. I'm sorry. I'm a real believer that a woman became crazy because of a crazy man. Like, if this is a good woman and she's doing everything she can, and all of a sudden you just start throwing women in her face, you're cheating on her, you're stealing the hard working money she's helping to provide to the family because you're the leader. You're doing all this, and she's doing everything she can, and you're just pushing her to the brink and to the brink and to the brink. And then she walks in the house one day, and you laid in the bed, and her bed with another woman, and she snaps and starts swinging on everybody. That didn't mean she was an abuser. It's just she didn't have those tools that we're talking about at her ready. But I believe that pain point is also that reverse. Not that people are naturally abusive. I think that pain point is sometimes the opposite sex, depending on how you want to look at it. They do things because they're not the right individual for that person. They do things to drive that person. And you know how cause and effect works is normally the second person that does the effect because of somebody else's cause that we pin it on. But no, I don't agree with it either way. I just think the teachings need to go both ways. Don't know what not to accept, know who you are, know not to put your hands on anybody, regardless of male or female. And then the caveat on that, know not to be that person that pushes somebody to where they need or feel like they're trapped in the corner and they got to swing to get out of it.
Got to defend it.
So, I mean, you get up on something that was strong. I know our time is just about up, but you hit on something that when you look at, you made me think of Proverbs 31 because we're always talking about that Proverbs 31 woman. But when you really look at Proverbs 31, it had nothing to do with that woman being that woman already. It had everything to do with who is that man that she is married to. He has to help her become that Proverbs 31 woman. Are you helping your wife become that woman? She's not automatically that woman. And if you find someone that's automatically that woman, that means she was brought up that way or she was trained to be that way because they're not that way, because they're going to change on you. If you're a different person, they're not going to be that person with you. So you have to be the man for them to be that way, for them to be that Proverbs 31 woman. So when you said that about how are you treating a woman to make her, are you throwing other women in her face? Are you doing? That's what you made me think of, because we don't ever think of that. Man, I got to go find me a Proverbs 31 woman. Or you hear one say, I got to be a Proverbs 31 woman. And they're comparing themselves to this person, but it's all based on who is the person they're with at the time.
Great point. Great point, man. Listen, that so I just finished up, and I'm in the last stages of my next book. You might have saw it. Are You in the Right Garden? Recognizing Real Relationships. And those 2 points right there are powerful pieces that are similar in the book in reference to the people that we are connected to, and are we prepared for them? Because the majority of the relationships that we are talking about, one side was not prepared for the other side, and so now you got this unbalanced situation that these two are, and they're not connecting in the garden correctly, because it's not being nurtured and fertilized and watered right. So as we go out, and this has been the kickoff right here. I really do appreciate this insight, man. This is gonna be hot. So, Brother Billy, you're in front of some brothers, and you're having this conversation about domestic violence, and you have a variety of men in the room, whether small or large, probably let's say medium-sized room, and different ages. And the question comes up. Well, it ain't got to come up. I'm gonna just ask this question. What are 2 things that you encourage those men? And this is going to be a question for both of you guys. What are 2 things that you encourage those men to do in their lives that keeps them from going in that direction, that 9-second direction?
My thing, because we touched on it a little bit with the Bible verse is slipping my mind right now, but I will start with them the 2 things: love and respect. So our generation, and that's not even our generation below us, ahead of us, I don't think they understand the man or the woman or how the love and respect works. Men, we don't demand love. That's not who we are. Mm-hmm. Women demand love. Women don't demand respect. Men demand respect.
Yeah.
If you look at all the situations you can think of, man, you don't respect me as a man. You don't love me. Love and respect. When a man does what he's supposed to do to earn the respect of the woman and loves her the way she's supposed to be loved, you eliminate some domestic violence situation. When a woman respects a man the way he's supposed to be respected and is doing what she's supposed to do to make her love him, make him love her, you eliminate those things. Love and respect. Women, respect your man. Do the nurturing, loving thing that you do that only you can do as a woman, especially my black queens, that only you can do. Do those things that's making us love us. And men, you need to do those things that makes your woman respect you and you love on her and love on her. I'm not gonna lie, I've been just as guilty. I've been married 19 going on 20 years. It's times throughout my own personal relationship, and y'all know I teach through transparency. It's times throughout my relationship I didn't love on my wife like I should have, and she probably didn't respect me like she should have, because we weren't doing what we were supposed to do. So I'm in a room with a man or women. Love and respect. Dudes, love and respect.
Great answer. Ding, 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 ding. All right, EB.
Man, I mean, how you follow that up, right? Because in reality, I mean, he just
Respect and love.
especially when you talk about love, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's right. Because Ephesians 5, I'm gonna tell you where it said. It's Ephesians 5 that you were talking about. But it is our responsibility to love our women or love our wives as Christ loved the church. The
Yes.
other part to that is the healing, right? If you're not healed, you're gonna be bleeding on someone else. Have you gone to go get some counseling?
Yeah.
I had to get counseling to understand who I was. I had to go through it. Because if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be the man I am today. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today, because I'd still be that broken person that was back there. But even in the midst of going through my healing and being healed originally, I still ended up in a relationship where it wasn't a physical type abuse, but I ended up dealing with some mental abuse. Because I'm just going to tell you, as men, one of the things that we love, that we have to have with most men, we want sex. I mean, I'm just going to be real. That's a part of the respect thing.
100, bro.
If you withhold that from a man, right, he feels that he's not worthy, right? And it becomes a mental aspect on him. And then it plays with his psyche to where, okay, what I got to do now to heal, to get beyond this.
Yeah.
So the thing is, he talked about respect, right? Women, respect your men, but also if you need to go to counseling because you've been through some stuff, go get counseling. Men, love your women, but if you need to go to counseling, that's a taboo in our community. I'm gonna tell you now, go get it.
Yeah.
It was one of the best things that could have happened to me was going through counseling. Why? Because you get to discover stuff about yourself that you have hidden on the inside. Because a lot of stuff that we carry with us has nothing to do with that person. It goes back to our childhood, and we carry that on up into adulthood, and we bring this drama and put it on to other people who don't even deserve the trauma, because then we pass it on to our children, and then it becomes that generational cycle that he was talking about. Well, how do we break that? Go get the help you need. So I'm going to say, I would say, go get counseling, love and respect. I mean, that's something I could add to the love and respect.
That's a great extension. So, man, I will never say all good things, but this has been a good thing. This has been very eye-opening. It's been very authentic and transparent. And if there was a way in the upper vision room that I would kick off MAD, men advocating against domestic disturbance, I couldn't have a better dynamic duo to start this off. Now, I still appreciate Billy and EB, Ebony Scott, Billy Graham Jr. Billy, how do we find you, bro?
You can find me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Billy Graham Jr. 2.0, Twitter, Mr. Billy Graham Jr. Solo One Clothing. That's the clothing line. I didn't get them in time, but we just released our new Stop Domestic Violence shirt. So solo1clothing.com. Log in, go get your Stop Domestic Violence shirt. Support the cause. We're here to help everybody support, but those are the ways you can keep in touch with me.
Outstanding, man. That's cool to know. EB?
Man, I'm about like Billy. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I do have a Twitter account. Everything is EB Scott Inspires. I even got a website called EB Scott Inspires. I just dropped a new book, Letting Go of the Offense to Receive Your Blessings. And then the original book that talks about domestic violence, it's not under my name, it's under a pseudonym, C.R. Bryant, basically Broken But Healed, the Book of Bryant. But there's two things, right? There's a third book, it's poetry, which I'm getting ready to do my poetry show. But what I'm telling you about these things is this. When you're broken, but you're getting healed, you got to go through a process. But then you also got to learn how to let go of the offense. And in between letting go of the offense, you have behind the mask, because we're always hiding behind the mask. That's the poetry book. But the new book is letting go of the offense so you can receive your blessings. Because as long as we're holding on to the offense from the past, your hands are like this.
Yeah.
But until you open your hands, you're not able to release. So that's who I am. That's where you can find me at. And that's it. The book's already out on steady. Like your book is in the way. Mine has already been released. They're on Amazon already.
All right.
Let go of the offense, and it's under E.B. Scott. So
Cool. Y'all go get that. Y'all go support my brother's whatever project. Billy, you didn't talk about it. You said it, but you didn't. And I'm gonna give you an opportunity because I don't have no curfew with my show. But talk about committed development. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. Committed development. I believe God gave us all gifts. And if you're one of those individuals that don't feel like you're getting where you need to be in life, or don't feel like you're where you're supposed to be, you know, those people like you're sitting in a 9 to 5, not saying 9 to 5 is bad, but if you're doing something that doesn't feel right with you, you know it. That means you're not utilizing your gift to live in your purpose. So during my time in the military, they taught us all about professional development, but they didn't really hit on as much as the personal development. And I feel like you can't do anything in life, whether it's professional, whether it's help support yourself against domestic violence, living in your purpose. None of that works if you don't work on your personal development, your mental, your physical. Like me, I have my 5 pillars: my family, my fitness, my faith, my freedom, and my finances. Like those are my 5 pillars. That's how I live in my purpose, and I'm committed to my own personal development. So I started the company Committed Development because we're committed to your development, because commitment is the foundation for success. No matter what your success is, commitment is your foundation for success. So I started that company so that we can help people utilize their gift to live in their purpose, on purpose, with purpose.
And as usual, brothers, this won't be the last time that we be on this platform. Because I appreciate the mere fact of having the opportunity to meet you guys in July, become brothers, and then knowing that we're going to be doing some work together. And this tonight tells me even more so we are. And so, I certainly appreciate again that you accepted the invite, that you had those had the tools in the toolkit ready for this conversation as far as domestic violence, from a man's view, and to be able to give the type of wisdom and insight, man, that you guys dropped tonight, man, I greatly appreciate it. So to my audience, this is the Upper Vision Room podcast. I'm your host, John McClung Jr. And as usual, on Tuesday nights, you have no idea who you might meet. And tonight you got a chance to meet 2 of my brothers, Billy Graham Jr. and E.B. Ebony Scott, who representing their particular locations, probably in Texas, I believe.
H-Town.
big in Texas. So H-Town is in the building. And so again, join us this month every Tuesday, where I bring in my brothers, in different categories, different, expertise. And we're going to tackle from our conversations domestic violence from the brothers' point of view. And this has nothing to do with color. It's just, man, these are my brothers, so, and this is my show, so I can do that. So, I can bring these individuals in, and, we're going to have a variety of conversations. And, I ask that, hey, listen, join us. And, man, guys, y'all hang out for a minute. We about to drop, I'm about to drop some diamonds, and we're gonna get out of here, man. Thank you again. And again, I look forward to talking to you guys soon.
See you.